Recording now. Welcome everybody to the meeting of the Faculty Advisory Committee for Friday, May 15th. On the agenda, we have a number of items, including one complication, namely this 1/3 that the Board of Regents has organized.
I can't.
Somebody has a phone on. Oh, I can't unfortunately mute everybody while I'm in recording and in screen sharing mode. Okay, that's better. Let's begin with the approval of the minutes. Can everybody see this on their screen? You have it as a attachment, but as a link to the agenda. And I'm just presenting it now on screen. You have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Lois, are you able to be taking minutes?
Taking minutes. Benjamin, are you on?
David, did you say you can't mute the loud person?
No, unfortunately, I have to leave. Let's see what I can do. Hang on a second. I'm going to have to stop for a minute.
Going for a ride.
Okay, I've muted everybody now. I'm going to go back to screen sharing. Okay, here are the minutes of the last meeting. Francis, I believe, has moved the motion to approve them. They are found on your agenda, the first link number 1. Saving them as a Google Doc really helps cuts down on the amount of stuff that has to be put into your mailbox. I believe people can unmute themselves. Am I correct?
Yes, David, this is Jen Long from Three Rivers. Are we allowed to vote on the minutes if we're non-voting members?
I believe not.
Okay.
But as long as if you're a substitute for someone who is not present, then you can.
Can you make a motion to approve the minutes if you're not a voting member?
So far as I understand, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Voting members can make motions, but
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, okay. And does anyone know if can you just one point, whether I don't mean to hold you up, but how do we tell if we can't see on the screen if the person who we would be the alternate for is in attendance? Is there a way to see a name of all the users? Does anyone know?
Yes, there is. If you click participants, it's one.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the. You'll see on the right-hand side where the chat would be. You'll see a list of everybody who's here.
Thank you so much. I'm just on an iPad, so I was having a hard time finding it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any discussion on the minutes? These are very complete minutes. I must thank Lois for that. If not, I'm going to try and unmute everybody again because I have to call for a vote.
I guess I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
I think that the WestCon representative is not listed either as present or as absent.
And who should that be?
That's Adam. Sorry about my dog. That's Adam Brewer.
Okay.
And also, I'm the Three Rivers rep, not Emmanuel. Or sorry, Michael. And I don't see my name. Oh, I see it. Oh, okay. I see it here. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Is Michael from Three Rivers also?
No, I'm here now. I'm from Northwestern, so yeah, that's incorrect.
Okay.
CCC. Thanks. Good.
Sure. And also for the callers that we can't see their names, I don't know if Barbara is here or if I should be voting in her place today. That was my last question. I'm sorry.
All right. What I'll do is I'm going to unmute I'm going to have to quit sharing the screen, unmute everybody, and ask for the callers to identify themselves. Mike, I'll have you down for Northwestern.
Thank you.
Just a comment, my faculty council has been using the chat function to vote. It's working very nicely.
Dave? Dave? What was Amy? Can you hear me?
Lois, you got to speak up. You can barely hear you, Lois.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Better, but it's still a little bit weak.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Somebody said the WestCon representative. I've got the WestCon representative down as Robin Gustafson and present.
Well, I'm Robin Gustafson. I'm the alternate. And the representative is Adam Brewer. I was at the meeting last month. Adam Brewer, I don't think was.
Is Adam Brewer a voting member or not?
I don't know if he's the rep. I don't know. Is that voting?
No idea.
I don't know.
I think when we looked at this before, WestCon was not voting this year. Does that sound right?
Yes, I think you're right, Kalina.
Of this meeting, whether
Are you able to hear me?
whoever that was.
Can I ask who is calling user 4 and 6? This is Barbara. Can you hear me?
God, this is
I
horrible.
can hear you.
Okay. I need to know who calling user 4 and 6 are.
I think Barb's calling 4.
Who's 6? We have a call-in user who's not going to identify themselves.
David, your mic's off.
Back on, sorry. It could be a guest, or it could be someone who's had to walk away from their phone for whatever reason. Let's ask one more time and then proceed to a vote. Call-in user 6, could you identify yourself? Okay. In the interest of proceeding with the meeting, let me call for a vote. Those in favor of adopting the minutes, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's approved. The second point on the agenda was reopening of campuses. Alina, were there representatives of the unions who were going to be attending the meeting?
Patty is supposed to be with us, and she said she would be able to make it for the 1 o'clock time. Are you there, Patty?
Waving at everyone. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, I hear you.
Hey, Patty. Nice picture.
Hi. Now, I'll just say, so Larry thinks he can join us a little bit later. Dennis and Maureen could not, neither could Greg. But I think there are two conversations going on, one with the CSUs that I think Patty is part of, and one with the CCs that Larry is part of. So I think we're going to hear both conversations, if that's correct. You can correct me, Patty.
Yes. There's one set
Can't hear her.
happening just for the CSU,
Patty?
separate one just for the.
She needs to get closer to me.
Do you want me to start talking?
Patty, you have to get closer to the mic. We could hear you before, but not now. Very good.
How's this?
Even closer.
I can't get that much closer, David.
Okay, that's good now. Go.
Okay. So these committees were formed a couple of weeks ago. I am on the system-wide academics and enrollment committee. I'm also affairs.
Here.
Yeah, Patty, we can't hear you. I'm going to mute everybody. Patty, could you then unmute yourself? Patty, could you unmute yourself now?
Did. Can
Then
you
you
hear
can
me?
speak alone. Yes.
Okay. The Student Affairs Committee has only met once. The Academics and Enrollment Committee has been meeting multiple times. The process has been a little confusing because it was our understanding that we were supposed to receive input from the local committees that at each of the universities that are addressing reopening issues. But Elsa Nunez, who's the chair of this particular committee, has plowed ahead. And our report, without any input from the local committees, is almost finalized at this point. I'm not really sure, and I've been asked what's going to happen with the input from the local committees, because what's the point of forming those local committees, asking faculty to do all that work and then not take what they find into account. On this academic/enrollment committee, I am the only faculty member. It's Elsa Nunez, chair, Jane Gates, Shirley Adams from Charter Oak, and Bob Prezance, who's the provost at Southern, and Jay Murray, who is the associate VP of enrollment at Western. With respect to what our report is going to say, we have emphasized repeatedly the importance of safety, staff, faculty, and students. We've emphasized that a digital divide exists for our students, and that digital divide also exists for faculty members. Resources are going to be needed to address that. There are some tentative ideas for alternate scheduling. They have tried to put language in there that says our collective bargaining agreement may need to be modified. I have resisted that. I have told the rest of the committee this morning that I simply will not agree to have any language in this report that says our bargaining agreement must be modified. They are aware. If we switch to different kinds of schedules, that's going to increase the faculty workload, and a number of additional faculty are going to need to be hired. They seem to understand all these concerns. I think the great unknown at this point is how much money is the system willing to put into this reopening. Publicly, the reopening date initially was going to be September 1st, but it's been moved back to August 24th. I don't see how this is going to work. The system and the state are going to have to put in enormous resources to provide PPE for faculty, staff, and students, to provide the extra cleaning that needs to be done, additional course sections that are going to have to be created, and so on and so forth. So with respect to this process, as I said, at least with the academic committee, it's a little weird because I think today was the deadline by which we were supposed to receive the reports from the local committees. And as I said, Elsa has gone ahead and insisted we have some kind of report. So any questions before I go on?
Anybody who wants to ask a question has to first unmute themselves.
This is John from Three Rivers. Could you tell me again what the name of the committee was that you were at for this meeting?
I'm on two of the CSU system committees. One is academic affairs / enrollment, and then the other is student affairs. I can't report anything from the student affairs because it's only met once, and I missed that meeting.
This is Kalina. I didn't hear the name of the second committee. I heard academic and student affairs, and then the other one was what?
I didn't hear your question.
Is my voice going in and out in the same way that Patty's is? Is it the connection?
It's probably
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so just the name of the second committee you mentioned, there was academic and student affairs, and then there was another committee.
No, academic / enrollment is one.
Okay.
Affairs is the other.
Okay, got it.
Okay, are there other questions? I mean, I know that at CCSU, we just got an email, which is a link to the website that has the reports from 8 different working groups, each of them about 6 to 8 pages long. But in short, really, there's only 4 key elements which are part of the governor's reopening group, which is plans to repopulate the campus, monitor health conditions to detect infection, contain the spread of disease when detected, shut down the campus if it becomes necessary. Those are the 4 key things. And obviously the question that we have is, what's going to happen on August, 24th, if that's the first day that we're supposed to be back? Are we going back fully on ground, fully online, or what seems to me more likely, some hybrid form? But I have no idea at this point, and I don't think anybody else does either.
David, this is Ron. This morning I attended a NEAN webinar with Barbara Brittingham from NETCHI, and she was asked the question about how long online or remote learning could continue, and all of the accrediting bodies have asked the Department of Education that question because right now there's an emergency allowance for all institutions to be fully online and maintain their accreditation. Okay, and that allowance is about to expire, and so the Department of Education has to approve an extension to that. And they've been waiting for a long time now, I guess, for several weeks for the Department of Education to speak to that. They've asked, NETCHI has asked for an extension through the entire academic year. Okay, but they suspect that they'll only get it through December 31st. Well, I think that provides a little bit of context in terms of what's allowable from an accreditation perspective.
Good. Thank you, Ron.
This is Kalina. It seems that Larry's also in the meeting. You're there, Larry?
Yes, I am.
Great. So we can get the community college conversation also.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I know. I'm part of one of the strategy teams, the technology, operations, and logistics. We are being asked to put together not really a strategic plan, but to gather up items of concern, items that need to be addressed, whether we have online education or whether we go for some type of a physical opening. There's two other committees that are doing a similar thing. So all three committees, along with respondents from the campus, because at each campus, people have been giving out surveys or planning documents, again, to put down all the different pieces. There's at least the committee that I'm on, we're going to meet next Friday, the 22nd, to flesh out just what it is we've put together so far. I'm guessing that the other two committees will meet relatively the same time. All that information is going to get put together, sent up to System Office, to Marco Jakin and the rest of his team. And then once they have everything, once they have all the information that's necessary, they're going to make a decision as to what we're going to do for fall 2020. Just as an example of some of the things that at least that I've encountered. As the IT director at Gateway, obviously I originally approached it from a technology perspective. In the community colleges, we're doing some extensive training for people for computer skills to get them ready for online teaching and learning. But there's still equipment issues that have to be dealt with. There's potential software issues. So I'm compiling a list of what kind of equipment might need to be purchased. When I surveyed some of the directors on my campus, they're coming back to me with things like how to deal with pedestrian traffic, what to do with cafeteria and food services, how to limit the number of people in the building, because right now the guidance that I've seen is 50%, well, at least for office people, no more than 50% capacity. And I'd have to venture a guess as to with students, we wouldn't want more than 50% of the classroom capacity either. No external events. Adjustment for building hours and class hours. Traffic flow in and out of the building. Lounge areas would all the furniture in lounge areas, at least in the community colleges, we're talking about take the furniture out of lounge areas. Limiting the number of bathrooms in use, partitioning off stalls and sinks. So it's actually quite formidable, the amount of information you've got to deal with to put this together. But this is the kind of information that we're putting together to push up to try and come up with something that's safe and coherent for all of us.
Thanks, Larry. Questions? It is complicated.
To borrow a phrase, whoever thought that healthcare would be this complicated, right?
Well, in effect, we won't know for several weeks. And so local institutions are centralizing their information to the system office, which is then going to present that as well to the governor's reopening committee. I understand there's at least 3 levels. Patty, is that right? Yes.
Yes.
So, you may find, as we're finding out at Central, that the various work group reports for our university are now available online, but they really don't answer the questions, those 4 basic questions. And the 5th one, of course, is in what form will we be returning? Wholly online, on ground, or in some sort of hybrid format. And I guess we'll have to wait some more. We can always reconvene this meeting once we know more.
David, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Christine Madura from Middlesex. I just wanted to share a concern I have. We had an all-college meeting the other day in which our recommendations were presented to the college community for fall returning. And, it looks like my college might be asking faculty to identify asynchronous versus synchronous classes and to have those designations in Banner so that students will be choosing them specifically. That we see this as a bit of a problem. I mean, it really does infringe on our academic freedom. And we think it could do a disservice to students to pigeonhole them one way or another. I mean, I think it's best for faculty to meet with their students to see what works for them too. And then if it's asynchronous and synchronous combined, fantastic. But I think to have to or be forced to identify that in advance is a problem.
I mean, I'm a department chair at Central, and I already have one faculty member who's indicated that he wants to do all of his classes online for health reasons, either directly affecting that individual or someone with whom they live. And that's going to happen. There's going to be students who are not going to want to come to class. There's been some discussion about having some way, if we were to have on-ground classes, for those students who do not wish to come, to record in the classroom the lecture, including the whiteboard. That's obviously additional technology. That still doesn't deal with the problem of faculty who may not, for either age or health conditions, not want to return in the circumstances that will obtain in September. So all of that is a complication.
Those issues. So there's going to be some people who belong high risk category for a variety of different reasons. There's also going to be a group of people who may not belong to one of those categories, but is simply uncomfortable with returning to campus.
Yep.
We're going to have to figure out a way to address those individuals, both our students, faculty, and staff as well. It's a major logistical headache.
And add to that the financial implications, because we know already that the universities have lost something like $27 million in refunds for dorms and food service, and for additional costs to cleaning the buildings and making the dorms available for emergency health workers. It's not just a question of whether we go back to the classroom. It's a question whether, for the 4 universities, whether the dorms are open, because that is a major source of income. And the shortfall could be in the millions of dollars per institution. Central has, I know, lost $9 million, half of which will be compensated through CARES. But that leaves $4.5 million not accounted for. And that's without reduced enrollment in the fall, extra costs for technology in order to put classes online, and the possibility that dorms, even if they reopen, would only do so at 50% capacity. I imagine there would be just 1 student per room.
Christine? This is Robin Gustafson. I'm just wondering, what's your concern about the asynchronous versus synchronous designation?
Thanks for asking me that. It's that if we are to stay mostly online with courses that are able to be taught online, and we're making a distinction between those and, for instance, lab courses that are required for students for particular programs, that our campus is looking to designate courses that'll be all online as teaching asynchronously, meaning just online, however that happens, versus synchronously, meaning at the same days and times as their classes, so that we would have to hold our classes Monday, Wednesday, 9:30 to 11 via WebEx or what have you, and that faculty might be forced to be identifying their courses that way, asynchronous or synchronous for fall.
But what is your concern about that?
Just that faculty, I mean, we absolutely have the choice, but I think it could be a disservice to students. And then what happens if a faculty member starts asynchronously, but then wants to, have meetings and so forth? I just don't want to give mixed messages to students that, it's got to be all or nothing approach. That's all.
So this is Mary Beth Rocheski from Zentuck. We've had this conversation as well, and just a few things that that we've heard that's a little bit different that maybe would help the conversation. We were told that if a course is designated as synchronous, then you have to meet for 1 hour for every 3 hours the class would normally meet on campus. So you wouldn't have to necessarily have the full time, but basically there would be a time set aside, and students would see the time when they register for the course. So they would say, okay, yes, I'm available, Mondays at whatever time, as opposed to, I think what happened this semester, or what the consensus at our campus was, is that sometimes students were missing things that were being done live because they weren't available at that time. And so the idea of listing the course as synchronous and with a specific time listed, students can then choose that course if they're available at that time, as opposed to the class starts and then the professor says, oh yeah, every Tuesday at 4 o'clock we're going to meet. And if the student can't make it, they feel like they're missing out on something. And so our dean did say if a course was asynchronous, there's no reason that we can't choose to do synchronous work. We just can't make it required because a student might not be available at that time, or we would have to record it so that they could watch it another time. So that's kind of how it was presented to us.
Can I ask a follow-up question about the 1 hour for every 3 hours? That makes sense. I tried to do synchronous for my classes this semester. So I was meeting my classes at the same days and times so as not to pose an additional burden on them in case they were working. That way they didn't really have to change their schedules. I just wouldn't want to tell any faculty they had to do that. But where did you get that 1 hour for every 3 hours? Is that just local for you, or is that something that came from the BOR or the online working group for CSU?
That is a good question. It came through our I'm on curriculum and standards, which is our curriculum committee on campus, and it came through as a designation. We're calling it remote online learning designation, and that has a 1 hour for every 3 hour requirement. So that was local, but I got the impression that language was coming from someplace else. But it came to us as a local decision. We made the decision locally to approve that. But I had the impression that we weren't the only ones seeing this language, but I don't know that for sure.
Thank you.
It's hybrid synchronous, asynchronous.
This is Ron. In terms of credit hours, Barbara Brittingham this morning was asked about the credit hour issue with online learning, and she said that NETCHI has never recognized credit hours as seat time. She said that they consider it hours of engaged academic engagement, which includes homework, class time, lab time, clinical time, and any other form of academic engagement that can be demonstrated. So it's not, it's not seat time according to our accreditor. I just wanted that to be clear, because with online learning, it becomes very difficult to measure credit hours.
This is Jen Long from Three Rivers. This is really about how the courses are coded, right? Because what I learned from Toby in one of my recent online Blackboard trainings is that anything with an online designation would not have like a WebEx or Teams or anything that would be synchronous. And then anything that's DLR, like distance learning, I don't know exactly what that code is, means something else. So there must be an answer to it somehow, right? I think, and I know we're probably going to get to this later in the meeting, but I just wanted to mention that what's frustrating for the faculty on the Three Rivers campus is that our administration created 3 camps of people to look at what to do in the fall, and they were all appointed positions. They didn't ask people who wanted to join, or they didn't ask for any input. And so it's really tricky for me to be the FAC rep. And then what happened in my situation was I was asked, I got an email, I think, from Colina on Sunday saying what's happening at your campus. And so I did a quick vote to say, do you guys want to go online or not for fall? Not knowing there was a difference between DL versus online. And I got so many emails back with people being frustrated for me not creating a more comprehensive survey. But my point was, I don't know how much power the FAC has. I wasn't asked to be in any of these positions on my campus, etc. So I'm getting a little bit cloudy on who's in charge, who's making the decisions, how it's happening on different campuses. I'm just confused about a lot of things. I don't understand the process. I don't understand who's in charge of what. Seems like there are answers, there's miscommunications, and I keep hearing July 1st as a hard deadline for when they're going to make a decision, which to me seems like a long ways off. So can anyone just clarify for me very briefly who's in charge and what are we trying to do today, I guess?
Can I answer that early in terms of, I reached out to Alice Pritchard when Barbara thought that we should have this conversation to see who we might need from system office to kind of give us a clue as to how this is going. And the process she outlined for David and I was that they would ask for input from campuses up to, it's due to the system office today. And then there are, if you see the form that I sent to everyone, that was circulated, well, it wasn't circulated at Gateway, it was given to faculty, staff, leaders. There are 3 teams that include college CEOs or presidents, university presidents, and they will be, I believe, talking to union folks and system office folks to plan that over the next few months. So that's what she said. And that's how she described it to us, which is why we thought that the conversation with Alice Pritchard, if it were to happen, wouldn't be appropriate today, but maybe appropriate further down the line when system office has received input from us, from the different colleges and universities. So apart from that, that's just that's how she described the process. But I don't know beyond that. And I will say, at different colleges, clearly, the process has been completely different. So some of you had a conversation at your set and had broad input. At Gateway, division lead, like department leaders, got some information from our academic, but really solicited for actual input. And then our faculty and staff co-chairs were asked for input just, the very next day, and they filled out the form. So at Gateway, there wasn't a lot of input either.
David and Kalina, I'm going to go unless you desperately need me to stay.
No, actually at 1:30, I don't know if there are other people who also want to go to listen to the organizational chart meeting that the system office has organized. You received an email dated today at 10:52 a.m. with a join the meeting for WebEx. I don't know if there's some members of the or alternates of the FAC who want to go and listen to that.
Well, I'm going to leave.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you so much, Patty.
Yes, I want to listen. I'm curious.
Well, why don't...
Has everybody received the actual WebEx link?
I think so.
Yes.
Check.
At what time?
What it says here is on Friday, May 15th from 2 to 3:15. Oh, that's changed now. Okay, from 2 to 3:15. All right. So let's continue on till 2 o'clock. We could take a break for half an hour in this meeting and allow people to go on and then begin again at 2:30.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
But this thing goes on till 3:15.
Right. Well, some people, we could take a break until 3. I don't know if we can go to 3:15. I mean, hopefully somebody could come back and report to us briefly, maybe with some screenshots by 3 o'clock. Kalina, do you think we can take an hour break? That's a lot.
We have a lot to do. The question and answer period will be at the end. So I don't know what people are more interested in participating in. We have seen the chart, though I don't know if it's going to be updated for this. And if anyone has the actual link, I've gotten a couple of save the dates, but I don't have the actual link, so please forward it, I guess, to the
I'm
group.
forwarding to you right now.
Thank you.
It has gone into the ether.
David, I wanted to try to see if I can mention something on behalf of SWOPE, if that's possible.
Go ahead, sure.
with regard to the conversation. Very much like Larry had mentioned on the campuses, I know that our president, our local president, has been very much involved with meetings with the administration at the BOR. But quite frankly, I do want to echo what David said in that on our campus, we have, I believe, 8 work groups, of which 2 of them are chaired by some of our SWOF president and members. And the work groups are around the facilities as well as the physical aspect and the social emotional aspect. So we feel as members, and I'm not sure that's happening at the other 3 CSUs, maybe if Marvin Williams is on, he can address that. He's the alternate. But I wanted to say something in regard to something that came up with regard to online learning. I work directly with students, and students have been asking me to take a semester off because they are not interested in taking, hearing some background, I'm not sure. Hearing some background.
Helena,
I feel like that has. Yep. Sorry, that was.
okay, go ahead, Myrna.
Okay, so just this morning, and I've had them throughout this remote working, but students are saying if the decision is, at least for CCSU, to go fully online, they will be taking a break from the institutions. And the break may be either going to taking a break or going to an institution, one where they'll have to pay less, which would be probably the community college, even though there may be some, total online, or just taking a full break until we decide to go on ground again. So that's something to keep in mind, and those are reports that I've been submitting as I meet with students and address their concerns about online learning. That's basically it, but I do know that SWOF is at the table at the BOR level as well as at the local levels of our institutions. I did want to ask Kalina, in one of your emails to me, I think it was the other day, you had said that this will impact SWOF members. One of the other things that we have been in discussion about is that in our contract, it is allowed for remote work. We have built that into our contract, so SWOF members aren't impacted as much for remote work. The last thing I wanted to say is that this discussion, I am part of that task force, the enrollment task force, that had made some recommendation. I don't know if that's the task force that was referenced earlier, the enrollment task force. And they were also looking at making recommendations about all of the things that have been discussed, the pass-fail, the transition back to campus, and the flexibility of working with students who are challenged by the remote learning environment. And one of the faculty members was made a mention, I believe he's from WestCon, Nick, and I was very much in support of what he was saying, in that if you become too flexible with the course content, it really is concerning in that if that student transfers to the next level, they may not have sufficient foundation to move on to the next course. So that was a note that was taken into account as we were having a discussion about the flexibility aspect of courseworks within this period of time.
Okay, thank you, Myrna. Well, it's pretty clear there's a lot of different issues. We will have another meeting in June when we would have more definitive information. But certainly that brings up a number of the kinds of problems and issues that are going to have to be dealt with. Is there any more discussion on this point? If
Just
not,
briefly, Fran Cohn, I want to respond a little to Mary Beth and Jen. On our campus, faculty have been given until today to decide how they want their courses designated. And again, without having any idea what's going to actually happen in the fall, without understanding also exactly what those designations commit us to doing, it's really impossible to make a good decision. I don't know if you're familiar with the Elron designation. That's sort of like a hybrid possibility. Our dean presented that as an option, but it's not even clear, again, what that entails us to do. We've heard nothing about having to meet asynchronously or not. So it's just.
And this is Mary Beth. I just want to clarify. So the two designations came through our CNS committee, but nobody has been asked to designate any courses. No faculty have been asked at this point to designate courses. So we haven't gotten to that point yet.
okay, any further discussions? If not, let's pass on to item 3, the NESHE report. And that would be Colina. Let me get it up here. That again was in your agenda, and it is a it is item. What is it? Sorry, I'm trying to get it up here. Yes, I'm going to display it. Colina, do you want to do the presentation?
Sure. And for those of you who read the draft before last night, anything new has been highlighted. So there's like a purple highlight in just a few bits. I guess I'll maybe ask for comments first, or do you want a summary of?
Yeah, do a summary first, I think.
Okay. I am waiting for the document just a second ago. Let me just, here it is.
Yeah, I've got it on screen as well.
I see it, but I actually want to scroll. If you could scroll down to, and I have it in front of me also. If you can scroll down to the bullets at the end, I think that might be a good place to kind of start in terms of the summary of how the information is presented. So in the concluding remarks, it says, we hope that we have demonstrated that despite valiant efforts of faculty and staff participation through 2018 and 2019, less has been done to create the content of the planned institution than it may appear. That needs to be fixed. Going forward, there are new obstacles in the form of faculty and union pushback to getting that work done. Second bullet point, more has been spent on transitional costs than was anticipated, and the costs continue to rise. Savings unique to students first have been claimed but have not been demonstrated. In fact, the opposite is true. Third bullet, system office impositions on college policymaking violate current standards of accreditation as independent institutions and put in jeopardy the status of specialized accredited programs. Next bullet point, efforts of system office hoarding of funds and organizational restructuring also threaten accreditation and viability of the colleges. And the last bullet point, Students First represents a threat to the existence of our colleges without providing a viable institution to take their place. So those are the sort of bones of the thing. The interesting thing is that the way this has to be presented is sort of roundabout, because while these are comments on Students First, it's presented as challenge. They are comments on threats to the accreditation of the 12 colleges. And while that's not immediately a problem, because of course these colleges are supposed to go away in a few years and be replaced by the consolidated college, it's not clear whether we can make it those years. And it's not clear that Students First will in fact come in and be a viable, replacement for these colleges. So usually you would, I think, direct these comments to the CEO of these institutions, but instead we have to direct it to system office, since that's sort of where the decision-making capacity lies at this point, which is precisely the problem, right? That the capacity to divvy up funds, control of IT, HR, accounting, finance, everything has been moved to the system office. So it's not clear that if you were to address this at an individual college, that college would have the capacity to make any changes. Only system office can. And that seems inappropriate for independently accredited institutions. So that is the way that the argument proceeds for those of you who have not gone through it in its entirety. Some of the things that have been added, not much. It was just really little expansions. The only new information I think that was added in terms of the stuff that's highlighted is that I was surprised that the update wasn't presented to the board, because this was the last board meeting before the update is supposed to go to NECHI. And in looking through past agendas, I realized that was silly, because the last update was not presented to the board either. And right before this meeting, I was kind of scrolling through the rest of the agendas and realized that what had apparently, when the board reaffirmed its commitment to Students First in December, it still had not been provided with any sort of official update on Students First progress, or its adherence to projected cost timelines, any of that. I have to reconfirm that that is true, but that has been added in a footnote that right below this paragraph here, right? So the paragraph contains the information that it was never presented to the board or any other governance body, and then in the footnote it says that they affirmed their commitment to it in the absence of that information. I find that really surprising. I have to reconfirm it, but that seems to be true. So I guess questions, comments, additions, subtractions?
Hi, Colleen, this is William. The version I got didn't have any of the appendices. Are those out and ready when you referenced a few appendices in here? Are those available?
I can just email them to you at the moment. I still have to figure out how to make a PDF that attaches them.
All right.
But yes, they're all readily available.
I think we need to approve this for submission on behalf of the FAC. I don't know that we can go through it page by page, but I think your summary here on these last points is what we should focus on in discussion.
I want to say one more thing while we wait for comments just about this, and also thank you so much to Ron. I think both of us put time into this thing the week before grades are due, which I think expresses a significant level of commitment to it, right? It's like giving your life for your firstborn or something. So I am fully committed to this document. I think it's necessary, but I'm really sad that it exists at all. And, in figuring out how this argument goes, and that we actually have to call into question the accreditations of the very institutions we're trying to save is awful. Just like I'm sure faculty feel the same way, those of us who served on Students First committees for years, it's tragic that after putting so much time and effort in, you find that the most productive thing you can do is to not participate and just watch this thing happen. So I don't know if we're all feeling that discomfort, and I don't think this is lovely, but I think it's necessary.
I think the commitment, Kalina, that you're pointing out is widespread with faculty. I mean, I think that the union statement that came out last week was very powerful. I had a faculty member who is so committed to avoiding even the appearance of supporting the system office's takeover of the community college system, that she asked me if it would be okay for her to attend the organization chart webinar because she thought that might be showing support. So we do have I do believe the unions are strong. I believe the faculty. I believe that there's widespread support for this document at all of the community colleges, you know, I mean, at least we better have, if we have any hope of a future, we better have that support.
If I could jump in, this is Paul from Capital. First of all, I'd like to thank Colleen. I know that you've taken the charge on this and you've done an excellent job, and the initial article that you wrote and some of these amendments. So thank you. I appreciate it. And I know that, like you just said, there's a lot of people in the system who do support this. And I also echo your concerns of the fact that we even have to write this. It saddens me, especially given some of the emails from the system that we've seen recently, just last week or just a couple of days ago, as we know, we got the email about all of the new appointments. And so that email was very clear, and all of the new CEOs and deans and assistants and people at the central office. It also wrote about the new 3 regional presidents and now the newly appointed president of the presidents. But in that same email, it stated that, as we've all heard, this is all being done for student access and to save money. So they've created all of these extra levels to save money, and presidents over presidents over presidents who will be under President Ojakian. And I'm certainly speaking more for myself, but I think I speak for a lot of people. I know Barbara Brittingham. I'm a site visitor for Nietzsche, and I really enjoy doing those processes when I visit other colleges. I respect them and their professionalism. But I think that we've got some very powerful politicians who are very good at what they do and essentially have always gotten what they've wanted, who can call in political favors. And I hate to say it, but I think this is a done deal. And so I echo Colleen's, again, remarks that it's sad that we even have to do this. But again, that said, you know, one of my other concerns, like many, is that the new name, what is it, Connecticut Community Colleges, and we've all expressed concerns about losing our individuality and losing all of the things that we are committed to. I've been at Capital for 28 years, and like many people on this committee, I'm committed to Capital. And so I'm afraid it's going to be, and I say this in all sincerity, as something as simple for them as Community College of Connecticut #1, Community College of Connecticut #2, down through 12. And perhaps that won't happen. I'm assuming it won't, but pretty close. We will have lost all individuality. We will have lost all uniqueness, which I think is one of our primary arguments. And then I'll just end with saying, you know, I also want to thank those of you on the university side that have written op-eds and commented and written articles and fought the fight. I, like probably everybody listening, I know Francis and Amy and many others especially, who've served on both internal and statewide committees for years and years. Most of the time, they're a waste of time. I hate to say that, but it's true. But in my short time on this committee, this statutory committee that's supposed to be taken seriously, I've thoroughly enjoyed working and getting to know some of you and your support for this system. But all of that said, I think we all know the handwriting's on the wall. And as soon as the final document is signed, before the ink is even dry, there will be a proposal that this same process begin at the 4 years. And I'll fight for you as much as I have for the community colleges, but I'm just frustrated through all of this that I think even when we get to Nietzsche, the political favors have been pulled in, and I think it's a done deal. I'm not going to give up, but that's just my personal observation. I hope I'm wrong. Thank you.
I just want to say I hope you're wrong too.
Well, I think the response so far to COVID-19 has demonstrated the importance of local decision making. We saw the governor's roundtable presentation where they asked about equity and immediately turned to Yale and Trinity to ask about their marginalized students. And those of us at the community college we couldn't stop laughing in horror at the fact that we're a Hispanic serving institution. They are not. And so to ask that question of Yale, to ask that question of Trinity was ridiculous. And to say that community colleges are just like any other business, which is what the Yale president said, that we're just like any other business, so we should be able to open up, right? Meanwhile, not even considering the fact that the majority of our students at Naugatuck Valley Community College take public transportation to our institution, and we know that the people who are working in public transportation are getting sick with this virus at huge levels, as are people of color, and which is also another large population of our college, which is obviously unrecognized at Yale and barely recognized at Trinity. So I think I've got a little bit of anger in my voice. Because I care so much about our students, and I care so much about the people who understand what community means in terms of community college, and I will fight till the end to maintain the communal aspect of our institutions of higher education.
This is Fran Cohn. Thank you for the subcommittee that did this. I think it's superb. I think Paul may be right. Maybe this is our last stand, but maybe there's a last stand beyond that, and it has to be done. And I certainly echo everything that's been said. And what's so frustrating is that this really is a cruel hoax being perpetrated on the taxpayer and our students. And our students are going to suffer the most if this happens. We know that. I mean, they already are. We hope the governor would intervene. We hope the legislature would intervene. I just don't know how likely that is at this point. So let's hope Neshi does the moral, ethical, and professional thing. That's all we can hope for at this point, and refuses to sanction this abomination. That's all we can do, but we have to do it.
Any further comments? Do I have a motion to approve this document for forwarding with the imprimatur of the FAC to Neshi?
I'll move. This is Robin Gustafson.
Second, France Cohn.
Is there any further discussion? Can I proceed to a vote? Only those should say aye. And Lois, are you still here? Let us do the following. Let us vote through the I'm going to have to stop sharing And I want to see if I can create a poll. Okay, those of you who wish to vote can do so now and who are authorized to vote.
Back in just one moment.
The vote will be open for the next several minutes. Again, those of you who are voting members of the FAC, you can vote. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Yes, no, or abstain. Are there people who want to go now to watch the WebEx of the structure of the proposed community college? And shall we agree to take a break until half an hour from now, say 2:45?
That sounds good.
Perfect. And I will send out the final PDF with all the appendices next week.
And Kalina, when you send that out, can we share that on our campuses or?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. Let us reconvene at 2:45, but let's wait until the vote is completed. So far we have, well,
David, this is Barbara. Can you hear me?
yes.
Oh, good, because before I couldn't get through. Nobody could hear. Yeah, I would vote in favor of it.
Okay.
David, this is Jen Long. Could we stay in this meeting but turn off our mics and then come back in a half an hour instead of having to
That's the
all
best
join
thing.
again?
That way you don't have to re-log in, etc.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. So 2:45, we're coming back?
2:45.
Thank you.
Lena, do you remember how many voting members we have?
I believe it's 10, and I think we should start doing roll call. So we know who's voting for any given meeting.
Well, the vote here will be, I'm going to stop it in just a couple of minutes. I believe if it's 10 people who are qualified to vote, we've had 10. We've had no answer from 7. So that's everybody.
Okay.
So the vote would be 5 yes, 0 no, 5 abstain.
Okay.
And 7 not voting. That's correct. It's 17 people. Okay, so we'll reconvene at 2:45.
I actually was just listening to the thing for a second, and it seems to be they seem to be struggling.
Struggling to get it going? Okay, so you can stay on, or people may want to come back, leave and come back, but I think it's just easier just to stay on. I'm going to mute everybody, and we'll reconvene at 2:45. And the poll will be closed in 42 seconds, but I think we've got the vote. 505.
we lose people? Did we lose David?
That other meeting was ended.
What happened to that meeting?
It was a hot mess.
It was sad
Disaster.
almost. Once I got in, there was some lecture about religion.
Yeah.
Theology lesson. Strange. People
Yeah.
forgot to mute. They were talking. It was so strange.
Well, this is a preview for what we're in for.
Right. Once again, it demonstrates that quality education is only improved through consolidation.
Yes. Hop down. Works every time. Worked in Cuba really well. North Korea.
Soviet Union.
Yep.
Yeah.
China. It's working really well. Contained that virus right away, didn't they?
Yeah.
They did weld people into their houses, if I remember. Weld the doors shut.
Hey, that was the BOR at its best, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
That conversation about religion was rather interesting.
Very sad. Very sad stuff. Things.
Well,
But if I have to say anything, at least it shut David Levinson up.
Does anyone know? Lois, you must know David Levinson, huh?
Yeah, I do. Very well.
Yeah, I mean, putting him as president when he was on that board before. I mean, they know how to play politics, these folks.
How about if I'm available to the highest bidder?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Did you hear about the Boston Group was given the contract to help open up again? Remember the Boston Group? They did Transform 2020.
Right.
Yeah, I
Boston
remember
Consulting.
I remember working with them on the FAC. They were absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
We paid I think it was 1.6 million to them. And at the end of the day, all we had was a PowerPoint slide. That was it.
I always say, I guess are we still recording? Well, they're going to get me for this, but I always say, follow the money. Who's being paid off here?
Absolutely.
Who's connected?
And
6 million. The rich get richer.
Well, just, how many millions did they just announce yesterday with the appointment of David Levinson and those 5 new administrators?
Yeah. Well,
They're
like
absolutely
Denise
tone
Rhodes.
deaf. They're
Like
absolutely
Denise.
tone deaf. We're going through this pandemic,